From Wangi's New Delhi visit to the Washington huddle. It's a packed Monday here at India Global with me, Arjun Samar Mahindran. But first, the headlines. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang to arrive in New Delhi soon as Asian giants move ahead to thaw ties. Another racist attack against Indians in Ireland. A 22-year-old Indian man harassed with racist slurs by Irish teens says did not decide to be born brown. After Alaska's 10-on-10 Putin-Trump meet, Zelensky and European leaders reach Washington to meet Donald Trump. I don't know what Quran he is reading. NYC mayoral race heats up as Eric Adams slams Zoran Mamdani over prostitution stance, questions religious values. And 21-year-old Indian origin girl makes legal history. Krishangi Meshram becomes England and Wales's youngest solicitor in recent times. A top focus this Monday on India Global viewers. Now, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi is set to arrive in New Delhi for crucial talks with top Indian leaders. He is set to arrive around 4:15 p.m. IST. He'll be taking important meetings with top leaders, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. Now, this visit marks the 24th round of special representative level talks aimed at resolving the ongoing India-China border dispute. In fact, it has been ongoing since 2020, since that 2020 standoff in eastern Ladakh along the LAC. Now, talks are expected to cover the LAC situation, the situation along the line of actual control between the two Asian giants. There'll be bilateral trade and the resumption also of direct flights between the two countries, which we heard an announcement only a few days ago will resume from September. Wang Yi's visit now comes just ahead also of PM Modi's all-important planned trip to China for the SCO summit on the 31st of this month. Now, this will also add strategic weight to this dialogue. Now, this visit is also very pivotal because it does not only talk about or result in thaw of defense ties between India and China or New Delhi and Beijing, which have been in choppy waters ever since the Galwan face-off took place. Now, as a fallout of that, there were other implications as well. The biggest two, in fact, of them being the cancellation of direct flights between India and China, and also the cessation of the all-important Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, of which we saw visuals, in fact, of the first batch of devotees going to the Kailash Mansarovar after 4 long years only last month. For our viewers just joining in, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi is about to reach India in a couple of hours. Now, his visit comes just ahead of PM Modi's planned trip to China at the SCO summit, adding strategic weight and also value to this upcoming SCO leaders meet, which will in fact take place in China starting around the 31st of August. And to shed more light on this, my colleague Gauri Dwivedi joins me. Gauri, first and foremost, how pivotal exactly and important is this visit by the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, especially at this time?
It's extremely significant, Arjun, and this visit also comes at a time when there's a lot of realignment that is taking place between India, China, and at the same time, India, US. Now, India-China is probably one of the most complex and challenging geopolitical relationship. We share concerns, shared concerns with regard to the economic bullying by Donald Trump and his administration. But at the same time, there's an underlying sense of mistrust between the two neighbors. There's been an effort to try and bridge some of that trust deficit, and some positive measures have been made. A lot of this may be incremental in nature, but the incremental progress has also ensured that there will be an upcoming visit of the Prime Minister in China, the first since the Galwan clash. Today, there is also the Chinese Foreign Minister holding another crucial round of border talks with the National Security Advisor. Now, NSA Doval and Chinese Foreign Minister are the representatives for the border talks that will continue again. And following that, apart from the border issues, then there are the issues with regard to trade and several other diplomatic efforts, all of which together ensure that there can be some continued progress as far as the India-China relationship is concerned. Whether that is resumption of flights, direct flights, or whether there is ensuring that some of the non-tariff barriers that China has put in terms of import of fertilizers and critical minerals, those are addressed, remains to be seen. But all in all, it's very important to tell our viewers that as far as the India-China relationship is concerned, it's at a very pivotal moment, expedited by geopolitical factors around the world, most certainly by Trump's administration.
Well, thank you so much for that. Gauri, my colleague Gauri Dwivedi, putting things into perspective just ahead of the Chinese foreign minister's all-important visit to India. And viewers, now we shift gears and take our focus towards the UK, where there's another disturbing case of racism coming out of Ireland. And this time, a 22-year-old Indian man says he was harassed at a bus stop by a group of Irish teenagers. Now, the man who shared his experience online says the teens drove by him multiple times, hurling racist slurs and also mocking him. One even called him sweet cheeks. Another shouted abuses, all while bystanders stayed silent. Now, the victim kept calm, refused to react, but says the incident has left him feeling isolated and also disheartened. I did not choose to be born brown, he wrote. We are all on our own when the push comes to shove. Now, this post quickly went viral. Many Irish users as well condemned the attack. Some even apologized. Others called for actions, urging willingness to speak up and record abuse. Now, this very worryingly comes just weeks after a 6-year-old Indian kid was brutally bullied in another racist incident in Watford. As stories like these surface, many are calling for Ireland to confront its growing problem with racism before it gets worse. First up, here's what the victim said.
So I'd gone out to do a house viewing for a friend, and my battery ran out of charge. That's why I had to switch from taking a bus to taking a train because I wasn't really sure of the bus route. That led to a slight delay. So the train took me to the city center. I headed to my college bus stop, and that's when I got on the bus. Everything was fine until then, nothing to worry about. 3 lads came out of this small alleyway, and they surrounded me. Before I could say or react to anything, the guy in the middle, he grabbed me by the collar, and what I presume is a blunt knife. He held it to my neck and started asking me for money. I told him that I don't carry loose cash. I have some spare change in my bag and my pockets, and they were more than welcome to take it. I repeatedly told them that they're welcome to check my pockets and the bag. In between this, there was a moment when he let go of my collar a little, and I used that opportunity to push him away. The kids, they're essentially kids. I would put them probably between the age of 16 to 19. I pushed them away, and a scuffle broke out, during which the main aggressor, he hit me a couple of times on my collarbone.
In fact, joined by the chairman of the Ireland India Commission, Mr. Prashant Shukla. Mr. Shukla, thank you first of all so much for joining us. Now, what can the Irish public do to counter this misinformation and also the social media narratives that have been fueling these attacks? And we know there have been more than 3 attacks in the past 2 months only, Mr. Shukla. What do you have to say?
the first thing, most of the social media campaigns, they are coming from abroad. The tiny minority, they are based here in Ireland. And we have evidence because on the Ireland-India Council's phone line, the phone calls for the hate speech and propaganda originating from US number. And we also believe that these calls may not be generated or originating from the US. They may be originating from somewhere else. And particularly, if you see the trend on the social media, these accounts they created and they spread misinformation and then they gone. So I believe there is some very specific targeted approach to spread this violence and hate, and that is inciting some of the misinformed youth.
Mr. Shukla, taking from what you just said right there, now what's the next step forward? Can both the countries collab? Can the communities in both the countries collab to end this spate of attacks?
I just want that actually the government of India should also take it seriously, because what I believe that we need to send a coherent message, and it is equal responsibility for the both sides that they take reasonable steps to protect the Indian citizens.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Now we shift our focus to New York City, viewers, where there's another fiery crash picking up steam ahead of the mayoral race. Now, the latest mayor, Eric Adams, is slamming opponent Zoran Mamdani over his past push to, in fact, recriminalize prostitution in the city. Now, Adams has questioned how Mamdani, a practicing Muslim himself, could in fact back a policy he says goes against religious values. I don't know where in his Quran it says it's okay to sell your body. It's not in my Bible, and I do not understand what religion supports prostitution. This is what Eric Adams says. Now, Mamdani, a socialist and former state assemblyman, has also co-sponsored bills to legalize sex work around New York. Now, Adams says legalizing prostitution opens the door for sex trafficking and more crime in the city. Mamdani's camp, meanwhile, has fired back, blasting Adams for cutting millions in victim support funding. They say Mamdani would invest $40 million into community safety and also support for survivors. But this heated debate, viewers, as I just mentioned earlier, is only gathering steam. An election day is coming, and so is the battle over what kind of city just New York wants to be. Well, with that, it's time we step into a short break. Much more on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching the Monday edition of India Global. Now, we shift our focus westwards, where Washington is staring at yet another historic moment as Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has arrived with a powerhouse lineup of European leaders. Now, on the table is a controversial new peace plan and a bold ask from President Donald Trump that could reshape the future of Ukraine. Here's a special report.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky touched down in Washington Sunday night, joined by 7 of Europe's most powerful leaders. Their mission is cut out to face a new diplomatic front with Donald Trump. And POTUS isn't backing down. Ahead of Monday's high-stakes meeting, he's laid out 2 non-negotiables. Ukraine must give up Crimea and forget about joining NATO. But Zelensky maintains Ukraine won't be bullied into surrendering land. The Ukrainian president insists that a ceasefire must come first before any lasting peace.
Передусім, я не знаю, про що реально говорили Путін і президент Трамп. І я хочу, щоб багато деталей президент Трамп сказав мені, потім європейським лідерам. І те, що президент Трамп сказав сигнал про гарантії безпеки, для мене це набагато важливіше, ніж думки Путіна. Тому що Путін нам не дасть ніяких гарантій безпеки.
But it's Trump's private summit with Vladimir Putin in Alaska last week that's raising eyebrows. Trump's envoy claims Putin agreed to US security guarantees for Ukraine, even possible land swaps. But the Kremlin hasn't confirmed a word on it.
The Russians agreed on enshrining legislatively language that would prevent them from, or that they would attest to not attempting to take any more land from Ukraine after a peace deal, where they would attest to not violating any European borders.
Meanwhile, Russian troops are gaining ground with their biggest 24-hour advance in over a year. And civilians are still paying the price. In Zaporizhzhia, a 15-year-old boy was killed, his entire family wounded. Still, NATO allies say they're ready to deploy a reassurance force the moment fighting stops.
Ces forces-là n'ont pas vocation ni à tenir une ligne de front, ni à être engagées sur un conflit chaud, mais à signer une solidarité d'un point de vue stratégique. Ça, c'est le deuxième pilier. Donc c'est ça dont il faut qu'on discute avec les Américains. Qui est prêt à faire quoi?
But as war rages and diplomacy tightens, the question remains, will peace come with a price Ukraine can accept? Bureau Report, NDTV World.
And to shed more light on this meeting, we are joined by Tina-Teen Akvlediani. She's the research fellow at the EU Foreign Policy Unit at the Center for European Policy Studies. And Dr. Akvlediani, in fact, joins us from Brussels. Thank you so much, Doctor, for taking out the time. Our first question to you. Now, Trump is pushing for a Crimea concession and a NATO neutrality, as we heard. Now, is this breakthrough on a strategic retreat, or is it a massive breakthrough for the West, or is it just a retreat?
Well, what we are seeing here is President Trump really wanting to somehow be, ending up into the deal maker for the peace deal. However, one thing that we also are seeing from the leadership of President Zelensky is that this peace should be lasting. Why this is very, very important? Because Russia has hundreds of years of histories to break any ceasefire deal it has been party of. So even if there is a deal, it has to be a very implementable, and also it has to come with the conditions that would push President Putin and Russia to stop violating the ceasefire agreement. And this is why we are seeing that after Alaska meeting, of course, now we are having the meeting in Washington with Zelensky and European leaders, because this is not only security for Ukraine that we're talking about security for entire European continent. And this is why there is so much at stake. And this is why the President Trump is today already having talks with Zelensky and European leaders.
Dr. Akvlediani, important point you made there. Now, Russia is also gaining ground while back-channel deals are being made. We had reports that only last month in August, in one day, in fact, it gained around 10 meter squares of territory. Now, does Moscow even want to negotiate in good faith?
Of course, Moscow does not want to negotiate in a good faith. We had already had requests from President Trump on the ceasefire. However, the response of that was President Putin bombardments, again against civilians, including against civilians several times in Kiev over the summer, and since the return of President Trump to the White House. So there is no good faith. We see that very clearly from President Putin. However, we also see that Russia is really pushing its positions, and the very fact that Alaska meeting has happened, that President Putin was invited to meet President Trump in person. This was already a political win for President Putin. Why this is the case? Because as we know, by the international law, President Putin is a criminal, right? In many countries, he would simply be detained, while at the same time, President Trump was willing to shake his hands and, have these talks against big banners on the peace talks, while President Putin never really showed his willingness to actually ceasefire up until now. So there is no good faith, and so far the Alaska meeting was a political win for him.
Right. Dr. Akvlediani, a quick question and a quick answer to that. Now, what happens in case Ukraine outright rejects Trump's plan outright?
There is no deal. In case Zelensky rejects the conditions, and you see that this is the case because President Zelensky and so European leaders in their statements, we saw they have clearly communicated that the land swaps so referred by President Trump, is really not acceptable for them, or moving territories by force against international law is neither acceptable. So we already see that coming up. We should take them as the red lines, and until President Zelensky or the Ukraine agrees on anything, there is obviously no deal.
Well, thank you so much for making the time and offering your perspective on this very important story, I should say, Dr. Akvidyani. We stay with the same story where a Ukrainian marksman from the elite Ghost unit has reportedly taken out 2 Russian soldiers with just 1 bullet. What's more, it's from nearly 2.5 miles away. Now, the sniper used a Ukrainian-made 14.5mm alligator rifle assisted by artificial intelligence and drones to land this kill. The bullet flew an incredible 4,374 yards. That's over 4 kilometers for perspective, piercing a window where the soldiers were in fact hiding. Military experts have also confirmed that the shot was fired near Pokrovsk in eastern Ukraine on the 14th of August. Now, this smashes the previous world record, which was also held by a Ukrainian sniper back in 2023. And this has beat it by over 200 yards. And here's the real kicker, by the way. The alligator rifle was not even designed for humans. It was built to take out equipment. Now it's just made history. Speaking of history, well, history also has a new name now, viewers, and it's called Krishangi Meshram. That's correct. She's just 21 years old and already a qualified solicitor in England and Wales. Now, Indian origin law graduate Krishangi Meshram, raised in West Bengal and now living in the UAE, has made headlines by becoming one of the youngest solicitors in the region in recent times. She completed her law degree from the Open University UK at just 18 years. Then a master's and a legal practice course, both with distinction, mind you, by the age of 20. Now, with 2 years of legal experience already under her belt, including time at a Singaporean law firm, Krishangi aced her final solicitor exams and is also qualified in April 2025. Well, what's she doing now, you may ask? Well, she's eyeing top law firms across the UK and in the UAE. But that's not it. She's also passionate about emerging tech law, everything from AI to fintech. Raised in a peaceful spiritual community in West Bengal, Krishangi credits her success to family support and a focus on discipline over competition. Well, that's all we have for you on this Monday edition of India Global. Take care and have a wonderful day.